Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I just wanted to have a quick chat about something that has shocked us all, which is Tucker Carlson being let go from Fox News. I think everyone is putting in their 2 cents worth, and that's hard to do until you actually wait to hear from the man himself. But I do think a lot of the chatter isn't too far off the mark. It certainly wasn't something that Tucker did by choice, considering his last show was saying, "I'll see y'all next week." Look, first of all, if you're someone who just is into, news or politics or just being informed in general, I'm not someone who gets into whether it's left or right. I will say I'm never wanting to be involved with extremists on either end. And there are extremists, there are people who have an activist mentality, and mostly these people are just narcissists, and it's about themselves, and they just want to say, "Look at me." And unfortunately, there is a lot of that on both the left and the right, the extreme left and right, just very polarized at the moment. I just want the truth. I don't care which political side of the aisle it's leaning on. I just want the truth. And I especially, I really enjoy it when a news reporter is someone who is impartial and just wants to report the truth. And I'll be honest, I don't think we've had a lot of that over the past few years. And, why do I like Tucker Carlson? I think for the most part, even if you don't agree with everything that he says, and nobody does, who agrees with anyone 100%, but he is someone that at least will tackle certain news stories that others won't even touch. And it's not about conspiracy theory or anti-government or anti-people or anti-anything. It's just about looking up actual facts, not a narrative, not something pushed down from, the oligarchy and the deep state. And yes, that is a real thing. Sorry, folks, but it is. The government's gotten too big for its britches, and they use the media for control. If you don't believe that, that's fine. But I think soon enough, if you're someone who wants to have well-rounded information on both ends, so you can decide for yourself, if you don't feel that in the news, if you don't feel that there's a narrative, you don't feel that there's control, that they are the machine, and behind that is the government, pushing them to give the narrative they want you to conform to. I do believe those are the facts. And I think with Tucker Carlson, he was someone that, for the most part, especially in the past couple of years, really just wanted to get to the truth and keep the public informed, which is what we deserve to be, which is what I thought journalists were. I thought pure journalists were about the truth. I don't know, maybe I watched too many 70s and 80s movies where they didn't really get political. And even if they did have a political point of view, they would go for the truth, even if it hurt them. And sometimes maybe they were astonished, but they would report on that. And the thing with Tucker Carlson, I think he flew too close to the sun. I think that's why Fox let him go. I think he started to touch on news stories that went against the machine and went against the narrative and went against that control. Some people are saying it might be related to the January 6th election. More importantly, the whole January 6th insurrection, or possibly about the election results, which were wavering, and there were false reports, and in the end there were actual reports on the data. Part of that is the company called Dominion, which are one of the election results companies. I'm just saying right there, Dominion, a scary name. I'm not trying to defame them in any way, but Dominion is a scary name for any sort of company, especially when your job is to make sure that you're reporting actual data and fair results. But anyway, there were some issues there apparently over what was being reported, and they didn't like what they heard, and they thought that it was slanderous. So they ended up suing Fox, and Fox actually just settled recently for about $800 million. That's between Fox and them, obviously. But, irrespective of that, I don't think that's any sort of one true reason why Tucker Carlson would have gotten fired over that, because he wasn't the only one involved. He's one of many reporters at Fox, one of many producers and people higher up than him, executives at Fox, who pull the strings and make these decisions. So I don't think it was that. And people were speculating, does this come down all the way from the top? Well, Rupert Murdoch, even though he's getting on in years, he is still, the buck stops with him. And Rupert Murdoch apparently was the one specifically who made this decision, and he was the one who ousted Tucker, which is interesting because it seemed like he had been supporting him all this time. And that's pretty serious when it comes from the man at the top when he lets you go. Look, the other thing is, again, I think Tucker was reporting on facts, and a lot of those facts don't put the U.S. government in a favorable light. But that's, again, I thought that was reporting. I really thought that's what reporters did, and that very often they would, get in trouble, but they kept doing it because that was the integrity of a reporter. Look, I guess nowadays we all have to have a job. We all have bills to pay, and I guess when it comes down to it, you want to keep your job, which is a bit sad. And maybe that's why a lot of reporters, they won't touch those subjects. They won't touch those stories. But Tucker did, and a lot of them had to do with the war machine. The American war machine is not something you want to go against. And when he would bring up stories in the Ukraine that were counter to the narrative that the U.S. wants you to believe, which is that there's no U.S. involvement, we're just sending money. And recently there was the whistleblower who leaked the documents that specifically showed that, in fact, there are operatives in the Ukraine from the U.S., not to mention billions of dollars. We don't even know where it's going. And when he would touch on stories like that, I think it ruffled some feathers. The other big one that he would touch on, and again, these are all facts. I think he is someone, again, I think he is a pure journalist at heart, which means he looks for the facts. He's not just going to report something because it's the current narrative that his news corporation wants him to push. And so he went against the grain there, and that doesn't help. But, if you don't believe these things, look them up for yourself. Look up the actual facts however you can, which is getting harder these days. But, that's what he would do. And sometimes, facts don't care about your feelings, and that includes hurting the feelings of the government. And you certainly don't want to hurt the feelings of the people paying your bills. And he touched on that with Big Pharma. Fact is, and again, you can look this up yourself, news media, as much as you think in America it's free and impartial, it's not, because it still is a business and they have to make money. And unfortunately, that means advertising, and that's just the truth and nature of that. And Big Pharma, they're huge advertisers. Up to 70% of their advertising dollars come from big pharmaceutical. So again, if you're a smart person and you think that there's no way that a pharmaceutical company, when they're contributing that much money to your business, to advertising, that they don't have any sway over what you say on the air, that's just not possible. Of course they do. And if you speak out against them, if you speak out against your advertiser will drop you. And Tucker Carlson probably lost advertising. But you know what he didn't lose? He didn't lose viewers. And it's, I don't know, I get it. A company has to stay in business, but it's sad that they can't read the writing on the wall, that when they let someone like this go, they're also going to lose millions of viewers. And yeah, that was one of the subjects that he would talking about Big Pharma, and Big Pharma controls, most of the politicians in the government, so they're just pawns as well. And big corporations are pulling the strings. So why do you think it's any different with mainstream media? And again, if you don't believe that, that's fine. I just think that the facts speak for themselves, and it's sad when someone trying to report the facts is let go from having the ability to speak on the world stage and keep the public informed so that we can make our own decisions. It's quite sad. It's not what I thought reporters were, but I think it's what he is. I think he has amazing integrity. Again, whether you believe in everything he believes in, that's the thing that I think is lacking these days in politics in general. Maybe it always was. I don't believe it, though. I do believe in the past a conversation was still had. Even if both sides disagreed, I believe they came to agree to disagree, and they came to a decision that would benefit the people, but maybe it didn't benefit their political party. Or look, they would always find a way to screw each other over, but I still think they had a conversation. Nowadays, you can't have a conversation. If you bring up certain subjects, you're pre-canceled. You're immediately canceled. And that's why I always talk about cancel culture. I think it's disgusting. I don't think it's how the world evolves. I don't think it's how America evolved. I don't think America would be what it is, when people talk about freedom. They live in a country where they can talk shit about the country they live in. They could burn the flag of the country they live in because they have that freedom. Well, you know what? The people who came before you, wrote some pretty amazing documents, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. These were some very forward-thinking men and women who created the country you live in that you can bag out all the time. And I think it's sad that we lost that with freedom of speech. Again, like I say, freedom of speech is, sometimes it stings, but in order to be free, you can be a patriot and flying the American flag, and right next door someone could be burning the flag, and you have to accept that. Both of you have to accept each other. And again, the greatest thing is if you can have a conversation and meet somewhere in the middle to have a balance. And we're losing that balance. We really are. We're losing it when you lose reporters who have that integrity, like Tucker Carlson did. So he certainly touched on too many subjects that were too close to the mark with I think the current government, the current White House. Again, I really couldn't care less if it's Biden or Trump, as long as they speak for the people, as long as the senators and the representatives of your state speak for you. I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat or independent, but right now I think none of them are speaking for you, okay? They're just telling you what to do. They're telling you this is how it should be, and we don't want to hear back from you. Even if the majority of you oppose us, they'll just they'll call you racist or Nazis. They will label you as something immediately, which is so childish. Doesn't that sound like a childish primary school kind of mentality? That doesn't sound like what adults do. I just think that's a big shock that they let him go. And I have no doubt he'll be fine. You know what I mean? He'll be fine. His followers will follow him, and I think he'll end up on the platform which I think true, open, and free discussion and free speech is headed to, and that's platforms like this, whatever you're listening on. If you're listening on Spotify or Rumble or YouTube, not so much YouTube anymore, sorry to say. YouTube, again, is backed too much by the big tech machine, and they are bound by too many laws. They're in bed with too many politicians, and unfortunately, even YouTube is not really freedom of speech because they ban plenty of videos if it goes against the particular narrative that they are meant to be selling you. Rumble, I hope, continues to be a great platform for this. That's why I moved on to Rumble, where true freedom of speech can still live on. And I think Tucker Carlson will move on to a platform and he'll be fine. Just think about him in general in terms of a job. You go to work one day and you think you have a stable job and things are all good, and then you don't. I don't care if you're making millions or making thousands. It still affects you. You have a family, you have loved ones, you have a mortgage, you have bills. You got to make your payments on your car. So yeah, these things do affect him, but I think he's a smart guy and he'll land on his feet pretty quick. And I'm sure everyone's waiting to see what he's going to say. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because I think it was very surprising. I really thought that Fox understood that letting him go and letting him talk about these subjects showed reflected on them as a news corporation that they really were trying to just report the news, report the facts to you, to the people. But sorry to say, I don't believe in the mainstream media anymore in the U.S. I don't believe it's free and impartial. I don't believe it's there to report the news to you and keep you informed so that you can make your own decision as an American citizen. I think, unfortunately, the mainstream media is now there for control. They're controlled by the government, and the government's controlled by big corporation. It's as simple as that. I know you're like, oh, what a conspiracy theorist you are. Again, I think if you put all the pieces together and you look at all the facts and you see how the mainstream media will only just keep spouting the same narratives, even though you can see the majority of people will ask questions and say, no, this isn't right. This is the actual data. Or actually, I'm seeing this in my own hometown or where I live, or this is happening to my family like this, counter to what you're saying. No, you're wrong. You're crazy. You're wrong. The government, of course the government has to be right. How could you be right? You're just a lowly citizen. Who are you? Who are you to speak up? And that makes me sad. You know, if you're listening to this or any podcasts like this that want to foster actual free speech and not talk about left or right, just want to talk about get to the facts, then, you know, you are the resistance. And I say, keep going, keep listening. I don't want to overthrow the government. I just want the government to be held accountable. I don't want to be just a cog in the machine. I don't want to be a number. And I'll be honest, again, the current White House, I hope it does change. It might not, but I believe they really want that. They just want you to be a consumer. They don't want you to own your own home. God knows that. They don't want you to have any sort of equity there. They don't want you to have any power there. They want you to work, but they just want you to really stay at home, order stuff online, buy your food, get fat, you know, go to the doctor. They just want you to be part of the machine. They want you to rent forever. They don't want you to own anything. You're a commodity. You are the commodity now. You're the livestock, you know? You're the cattle. Sorry to say. We're all just the cattle now for the big government, big pharma, and big tech. Your little avatar online, whatever you're using, Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, that's your virtual world, and they love that. They want you to stay there, and they want to, you know, get all your data and stats and keep you an online commodity and just keep milking you until you got nothing left. And that again, that's what makes me sad, because mainstream media is all part of that. They feed you the same crap all the time, and they want to keep you in line. It's about control. If you've ever watched the movie The Matrix, I'm going to tell you right there, the mainstream media, they are the Matrix. The Matrix is about control. It's about keeping you, you know, pacified and under control. Again, I don't want everyone to go and riot or something, but I just want people to be able to have a conversation. And that is something that we're sorely lacking. You know, the conversation without getting triggered. Not to get so triggered by something, you know. I understand we're emotional beings, but we really need to bring some more logic in and balance that out and not let your emotions overrun the logic and the truth and the facts of a situation. So yeah, I do think Tucker Carlson is a loss as far as the platform that he had on Fox. But again, I'm sure he'll find a new following and his fans will follow, and Fox will find out that, you know, if it is anything to do with the lawsuit, you know, the $800 million they paid out, I guarantee they will have lost that much when the stocks dropped, and they did. When Fox, the stocks dropped, and that would be directly related to getting rid of their star primetime anchor. How could they not realize that? I'm also a bit sad. Again, I know everyone has to keep their job. I get that, but you know, I was looking on YouTube, and there's not a single comment from anyone else on Fox. And there's a lot of other, programs on Fox I watch as well, Gutfeld and Hannity. And again, they all have a different sort of take on everything, which is what news should be. You can still have a bit of a, not a narrative, but I mean, look, there used to be, like in the newspaper, there was all just the standard reporting, and then maybe there was editorial section, okay, where the reporter could take some liberty and put their spin on it. But you know what? People understood what that was, and they kept it to the editorial space. And that's just this reporter's opinion, okay? And that was the thing, and I don't mind that. That's great. But you know what happened? It all became editorial, One of my favorite 80s movies with Albert Brooks and William Hurt, I think everyone should watch that. It's called Broadcast News. I swear to God, I don't even think that could be made today because they'd get in trouble. But this was a great movie, and it was almost, now I look back, like a documentary. It really showed the shift between sort of the Walter Cronkite days of reporting the news, again, to keep the public informed, which is what the news should be, which is what mass media should be, to the days of Tom Brokaw and the more flashy anchors on TV. And one of the key things they said in that was, one of the reporters was giving the anchor advice on how to make it. He was trying to get on the primetime news. He was just a sideline reporter, and he was trying to be anchor. Again, hey, that's a huge step up in pay and integrity and fame. Which again, I don't think a reporter should be seeking fame, but we're all fame whores these days. But the advice he gave him was, when you feel yourself just reporting the news, stop and start selling it a bit. You know what? That is the phrase that fits everything nowadays. They're not reporting the news. They got to sell it to you. It's got to be the narrative. It's got to be shocking. It's got to be in the news, and it has to compete against the other station. And that is the problem. They're trying to sell it to you. They're selling you the news, because right after the anchor says, we'll be right back after these ads, now they're going to sell you more crap. And a lot of that comes from Big Pharma, because sure enough, right after the news report comes an ad from Pfizer. Well, holy shit. You can't speak out against Pfizer when the ad on your news station is backed by Pfizer. You get what I'm saying? So if you believe mainstream media is impartial and also has advertising for billions and billions of dollars of pharmaceutical corporations, then I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you. And no, don't look to something like PBS or government-backed news, because they're worse. They're government-funded, like Canadian news. The Canadian news is government-funded, so you're not going to get any truth there. Sorry. So all I can say is mainstream media, I feel like it's a dinosaur, and hopefully all these platforms start picking up and becoming a better, more unfettered news source and a real, freedom of speech source for news. So anyway, that's just my quick take and sad take on Tucker Carlson. And like I say, I think he'll do fine. And watch this space. We'll see what he does. And hopefully he'll come back and give his side to what happened. I'm sure he will. I'm curious how he will do that. Who will get that news scoop? I also did want to mention something he reported on, which was again that whistleblower who was working for the military and leaked some documents about the U.S. involvement in Ukraine. You know what's really sad about that one? It was the New York Times revealed something to the government to blow the whistle on him. You know what? All I can say is that right there really doesn't sound like journalism. Again, in the old days, it used to be that someone like that was going to be protected, someone that had information that was affecting U.S. citizens, affecting their sons and daughters going to war, or affecting the billions of dollars that the taxpayers are paying to fund the war machine. Someone like that used to be protected. Someone like that would be put up in a hotel somewhere anonymously, and a report would be done saying facts have been found for an unnamed source. And you know what? I'm sorry to say that actually is still, that's integrity. That's journalism. That is them saying, what you have found is important. If you found it by doing something, if you took it or you stole it, you did something wrong to get it, but it was for the right reasons. Look, I'm not going to get into that area, but in the past, there have been, so many reports leaked, and the American public found out, and they should have found out because it was being kept from them. So when someone does that, maybe they are pushed to do it for the right reasons, but they had to do the wrong thing to get it. But to have a newspaper, to have an organization like that with decades of integrity about journalism, they were the ones that sold them out to the U.S. government so that they could capture them. That just doesn't sound right. And if that doesn't sound like, if you don't believe that just from that the mainstream media are absolutely being controlled by the government, then I don't know what to tell you. When a whistleblower gets their whistle blown by another media news source, that's bad. I thought they were at least in the same club. I thought there was at least an understanding, an unspoken rule that they would protect each other. Like people say, I got to protect my sources, because if you find out who they are, they could be in trouble, or their family could be in trouble, or they could be in dire straits. So I'm reporting from someone who's directly involved in the government, and they're leaking me this information, just like police and informants. You know what I mean? That would be exactly like the police giving up an informant. I shit you not. Does that sound right to you? No, it doesn't. So that would sound like corrupt police, if you ask me. So if a police gave up their informant, and this informant gave them valuable information on like a drug cartel, and ended up saving, hundreds of lives and children's lives, and from drugs or straight up murder, that'd be like the police giving their informant up. Oh yes, here he is. Let's put him on the front page. Go get him, cartel. Tear his ass up. Yeah. So, that is exactly what's happening when one media outlet, spills the beans and gets that person in trouble for that person trying to do the right thing, for trying to inform the citizens of America what's happening behind the scenes and how they're being lied to. So what can I say? Trust them if you want, but I don't. I don't anymore. And now I'm just going to try to hopefully find Tucker Carlson wherever he goes, because I don't know who to trust these days. I listen to Jimmy Dore, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, different sources. That's all you can do. And again, you may not agree with each and every one of them. Russell Brand. I mean, these are all Bill Maher. Every name I just said, all these people are completely on polar opposites politically, but they all have one thing they're all doing. They are passionate about reporting the truth. And Bill Maher put some satire on it because he's been a comedian his whole life. But you know what? He's closer to the truth than many mainstream media news anchors. Russell Brand, who would have thought that this actor comedian is quite the genius? But again, his passion probably gears towards sometimes to conspiracy theory. But he also, you have to give him credit. He always makes sure it's backed by facts. That's the trick. That's the key. Not a government fact checker. That's a lie checker, a lie prover, a lie giver. But someone like Steven Crowder or Russell Brand or Jimmy Dore, they have fact checkers, and they'll show you on the show when they're talking, they'll say, this has been cited, and here's the facts. Here's the report. Here's the scientist that did it. Here's the medical doctor that did it. Even if they were shut down by the government, here's this one person trying to give you the truth based on actual facts reported, So look, all I can say is at least try to trust those people who, when they're reporting you what's going on, if you think it sounds like wild conspiracy, but They actually cite the facts, and they encourage you to look them up. Steven Crowder is excellent with that, and I think that's great. They encourage you to seek out those facts from the same sources they did, and then you can form your own opinion, and you can agree or disagree. If the outlet you're getting your news from doesn't tell you that, then you're already down a lost road, and I can't help you. So look, get your news from multiple sources and form your own opinion, and be open to ideas. Be open to a conversation. Always be open to changing your mind, but also be open to standing your ground if what you believe is based on facts. I don't know what to say. We're going down into the 7th level of hell. I don't know. But anyway, hopefully, like I say, Tucker will pop up again soon. So hopefully we'll see him around, and we'll hear his side of the story. All right, that's all I've got for now. Hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you later. See ya.